everybody, it's Steve Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Circle of Brilliance. Today we're going to start a discussion about PowerPoint maneuvers for self and others. This was requested at the end of our quite long series on finding happiness on the change grid. And I think we still have a lot more on that subject to explore and revisit as time goes on, but it's good to mix things up a little bit. So I thought we'd talk a little bit about PowerPoint maneuvers. And by the way, there is a connection. If you think about it, the center of the change grid is where we decided that happiness as a state of being and all the greater levels of happiness, including joy and all that, are actually occurring at the center of the change grid. So PowerPoint maneuvers, if you think about it, could also be happiness maneuvers. These are things you would be able to do to move you to a center place on the change grid. I imagine you're all looking at the layer of the change grid with the concentric circles. Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so we refer to this layer as the balance layer. The place of perfect balance is obviously the exact center, but you can't really stay there all the time. That's not where life happens. And so we talk about being 1 degree out of balance. 1 degree out of balance could get you leaning in any of these 4 directions, actually any direction if you want to really build them all out. But that to me is still where things are very happy, easygoing, no real problem at all, because again, you're still rating your ability as being in the moderate range, maybe not exactly 6, but say 4 to 8. And you're also looking at challenges of between 4 and 8. And so this is a pretty okay place to be. Now, as you move between the green circle and the red circle, we refer to that as being 2 degrees out of balance. Now, things are a bit more challenging. So if you're up grid, there's definitely some sort of a uncomfortable situation that needs to be navigated because, again, you may not be in a life and death situation, as we'll talk about in just a second, but you're anxious, you're nervous, stuff's happening up here, and you need to do something to change that. If you're in 2nd degree imbalance out grid, this is where the test is all starting. So you view your ability as being quite high, but the challenge is equally high. And so you're out there, but this is not the time to be dropping the ball or whatever sports metaphor you want to put into play there. And that's all fine. 2nd degree imbalance down grid, you're not really paying attention to much anymore. Things are moving more and more into autopilot. And 2nd degree in grid imbalance is now you're retreating away from whatever life is delivering your way and just going like, maybe I could do something, but maybe I should not do it. So am I going to step further out grid and become a little bit more deliberate in what I'm doing, or am I going to take the warning in heart and see if I can disappear from whatever's going on at that moment in time? So remember that the in-grid side of things is just not being all that prepared for challenges. And so daily living, you can take very low level challenges, even if you have a very low level of ability, because there's, no big threat is really going on. If you're outside of the red circle, now you're in 3rd degree imbalance, and you guys also know those areas as being the danger zone. And so the question that we're looking at today about PowerPoint maneuvers is whether you are in a 3rd degree imbalance or a 2nd degree imbalance, or even a 1 degree imbalance, 1st degree imbalance. How can you quickly move to the center of the change grid just to catch your breath, center yourself a little bit, look more clearly at what's going on around you so that you can make the right decision that needs to be made and get back out there living. So yeah, this is a little bit of a retreat spot. So any questions or comments about what I've just reviewed with all you guys about this particular layer of the change grid? Yay, nay? Nope. And so we also refer to this layer of the change grid as being radial trends on the change grid. So a radial trend is a trend that tends to hold very true at the exact center of the change grid, and its opposite expression would be at any of the 4 powerless points. Or it could be something that holds true at any of the 4 powerless points, but the opposite would be the center of the change grid. So for example, one word you'll find at all 4 powerless points is delusional. Well, what's the opposite of delusional? I don't even know. Do we have a word that's the opposite of delusional?
Rational.
Rational. There we go. We'll do that one. So rational would be very much in the middle of the change grid. That kind of works. If I said that at any of these third degree imbalances, you're going to be very dysfunctional. Well, what's the opposite of dysfunctional? Plain old functional.
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 That's the center of the change grid. And so there are radial trends, things that are true in a certain location on the change grid and change as you move away from it in any direction. When we were looking at neurotransmitters, we also said that serotonin tends to live inside of the green circle.
Mhm.
And as we step away from that center of the change grid, our level of serotonin is going to diminish. That's not the right lingo. Our reuptake of serotonin is going to
Mhm.
diminish, and instead we're going to have something else come into play. Maybe that's dopamine, but if you're going upgrid or outgrid, that might be more of the endorphins, adrenaline. Depending on how far away you are, obviously your bowl of soup changes. Okay, any thoughts about radial trends on the change grid? Again, lots more to talk about there, but that's the basic review of it.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that is subject to um, different industries. For instance, in Business Insider today, just read a headline that said a mental health crisis is brewing in Silicon Valley as tech workers complain of sexual issues, burnout, and distress. So apparently, I think 7 out of 10 are going to doctors for erectile dysfunction and all different kinds of consequences of stress.
Yep.
Now,
Yep.
that's an industry that's all about secrecy. It's all about, um, you know, overwork.
Yep.
It punishes people for dissenting voices and all those kinds
Yep.
of
Yep.
things.
Yep. Yep.
So I just remember when Tim was talking about some of the work he does, and he used that word awareness. Like he strives to get their awareness, and that could bring them back. But if you're in these sectors where you're just unaware and you normalize the crazy,
Yeah.
I imagine it'll be very difficult for that in terms of PowerPoint maneuvers, because this article is talking about how it's difficult even for them with these perks like the massage rooms and
All
the
right.
6-figure
Providing,
salaries.
yeah, and you get all your meals provided and all
Right,
just
right,
tricky ways to get you to stay at work.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep, 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 yep. Well, I also heard something on NPR yesterday about what's going on with the birth rate in the United States and population growth or whatever. And this guy I think he's from the Atlantic, and he studies, I forget, but anyway, he does a lot of writing in the Atlantic. And he basically said that without population growth, there is no growth in GDP, because GDP requires growth in industries, and industries can't grow if they don't have people. And so sooner or later, a reduction in population is going to express itself in a reduction in overall productivity. And I thought, well, that's pretty obvious, but I'd never thought about that before. And the topic kind of changed to, why is our population shrinking? Well, our population is shrinking for 3 reasons. And the 3 reasons were, number one, because of COVID, the death rate went up rather significantly. 1 million people died who otherwise would, well, they may very well have died, but not have died quite as quickly as they all did. So there was an uptick in the number of deaths, and they're attributing that mostly to COVID. The second thing is that because our immigration laws are tightening up, we're not getting a lot of our population growth from people who are, entering the country. And they were talking about whether it's legal or illegal. We just don't have the number of people immigrating into the country that we may very well have routinely had in years past. And while we all want those people to be here legally, the truth is that a lot of industries desperately need those kinds of workers. And so they said, so that's part of the issue about our overall population going down. But they said the most startling of all was that one would expect that with quarantining and lockdown, that there would have been a huge increase in babies being born. And quite the opposite is the case. So fewer babies have been born these past 2 years than in any 2 years back to even World War II.
Wow.
So people just weren't feeling frisky. And the thought was it was because of stress. So because the amount of stress everyone was having, the unknown, the pressure, and they even said that it was really felt like a vacation for the first month of being at home. And then you kind of went like, it's good to be able to get out of the house for a few hours a day and have, other interactions and all that sort of stuff. So isn't that interesting that
It's fascinating.
yeah, because after wars, there's always a baby boom. That's where the baby boomers came from, for that matter. Although I think it was probably the Korean War. Yeah.
That's pretty funny. A friend of mine relocated here pre-COVID, and I called him and offered to go pick him up the other day, and I could hear his wife in the background going, "Yes, please come get him."
Yeah,
You know what?
There's no vow that says staying together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. That was not in the vows. So I love it. Yes, Edie.
Yeah, I'm thinking I don't think it's as simple as just stress. I just see, with the millennials that come here, they are so into their dogs. They treat them better than most people treat their children. So I think there's a whole shift there. They don't want to be bothered with a house. They don't want to be bothered with a child. It was just on the news yesterday, the cost of every child. So some people are more conscious of, it's just, aren't they cute? But no, they're expensive.
They're very,
and so I think there's all the other things.
That was also part of what they were talking about, was that our birth rate was already on the way down before COVID even came along. And it was for the very reasons you're talking about. And they also brought in the idea that if you are self-employed, the cost of medical insurance is so out of control. The cost of medical care is so out of control that what family could afford to have children who need to go to the doctor? I don't know how often a kid goes to the doctor, but I suspect they go a lot more frequently than an adult goes.
And you know what, T, there's also been studies done that people are, and this with patients, I can see it. They are so addicted to their devices that sex is secondary. It's just not, they don't have time for it.
And they may very well be getting their sexual fulfillment online anyway.
And that's a fact. Yeah. And seeing someone.
There it is. So anyway, so we bring all this up just to say that if we ever want to kind of restore any level of normalcy or whatever, we got to get away from these third-degree imbalances, even try to control some of these second-degree imbalances. We need to find our way back to center. We need to be able to breathe again, just relax and slow down and everything else that happens at the center of the change grid.
So when you're out there, T, and like the second degree, or you're getting close to like the third degree, does it start with like some kind of personal audit to where you're surveying like what really is my purpose out here? What's really adding value to is that the kind of PowerPoint?
I think that would move you back in.
That question alone would move you back in. That would be a very good thing to do. I would suggest to you that anyone who is close to this red line or beyond the red line is in no mental state to be self-examining or self-aware. Because they're in whatever it is that's going on. I mean, downgrid, they're becoming more unconscious of what's really going on. Remember, people down here are running on autopilot. And so I don't think they're really even I don't know that it's even on the stove. Forget that it's on the back burner. So they're not paying any attention to what's really going on. And the people that are out grid are really pushing to make something happen and make it happen now. So they're not paying any attention. And the people that are up grid are in a real, challenging, maybe even life or death situation. And that then leaves us with these people that are very far in grid. And again, we don't know many of them because I think they're hidden for large part. They are, well, I think they retreat. They they disappear. They don't want to be seen. So these are the oppressed. This is where self-esteem becomes a real issue for people, and so wouldn't surprise me at all to that these people are just busy disappearing. How else to put it? Yeah. But to your point, I think that it's when someone is leaving the green circle and going in between the green and the red that it would serve them well to go there with this intention to be mindful about how they're thinking and feeling so that they can go back in, recharge their battery, and then come back out and play with life again, and then go back in if they need to and recharge their battery, and then get back out there into life. I mean, it doesn't have to take a long time to get there and recharge. You could do that inside of a minute of the right in-grid maneuver, or right PowerPoint maneuver could be all you need to get there. We'll talk about that as we start talking about your PowerPoint maneuvers.
So if they're already out there in the 2 to 3 range, that's where resistance is going to come in. They're going to fight it because I imagine if they're out there like that, they most likely don't want to be told right or wrong.
Yeah, I would suggest to you that that's where our value comes into play. Because depending where they are, they might need to be saved if they're too far up grid. They need that kind of a life ring thrown their way. If they're too far out grid, they might need some sort of an intervention. If they're too far down grid, they need someone to build a fire under their butt and get them back in motion. So think about why people tend to hire us. No, it's either because some executive is out of control. So can we get them to chill back a little bit? Because everyone wants to, get to the outcome, but we don't need this nonsense to, add it to the pile. As we work our way around this, there is a need for a human development professional of, one from the full variety of way that that industry expresses itself, but that's what's needed. So, yeah. Yeah. In fact, I think Diane, early on in her career, and Edie, you might have experienced this as well. How many of your clients were actually court appointed, court mandated?
Yeah.
So someone outside of that individual said, you might not think you need some help, but you do.
Yeah.
So, go ye therefore and meet with this counselor or whatever the case may be. So that's what I'm thinking is happening right at the red circle. I don't think these people are actually aware enough until like maybe upgrade the doctor tells them you need to chill, or even outgrid the doctor tells them you need to chill. Maybe it's a spouse that says to you, if you're too far out grid, you might be a bully at work, but you don't get to be a bully at home. So, whatever, someone has to have some boundaries. And most of you on the call are parents. I'm sure you've had plenty of occasion where you've had to say to your kids as they were growing up, get off your butt, get out there and go do something. Take initiative. Don't wait, blah, 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 blah. And when we deal with the people that are in grid, even though we're not frequently working with them, it's encouraging them to take a chance, step up, find your inner power, find your inner voice. So yeah. Okay, so you guys kind of get what I'm talking about when it comes to this idea about being out of balance and the benefit of getting back in, all that, yeah?
Yes.
And that leaves us with the question of how do you do that? So I don't want you to confuse upgrade maneuvers as PowerPoint maneuvers, even though upgrade maneuvers, if you're downgrid, sooner or later, they're going to move you through the PowerPoint. So remember we said the upgrade maneuvers, shall I test you all? What are the upgrade maneuvers? So they are increase the standards against which you're measuring your own performance, change the task in some subtle or profound kind of way, awaken emotions of a higher level of tension, and boost accountability. Well, that's all about getting people out of this power apathy and apathy kind of range. You may very well go through the PowerPoint on your way, but that's not a PowerPoint maneuver. And I can say the same thing for all the other sets of maneuvers we might use: up grid, down grid, in grid, out grid. PowerPoint maneuvers are unique. So, okay, any questions about you can't use the other maneuvers as a way to get people to the PowerPoint, even though you might move through there coincidentally? Yeah, y'all got it?
Yes.
Lovely. So now, what are PowerPoint maneuvers? PowerPoint maneuvers are things that a person can do that will immediately move them to the center of the change grid. So now there's a lot of generic things out there that people have read about doing, have been trained to do. It's just almost become part of kind of like the normal range of understanding people have. Like, what happens if I take 3 deep cleansing breaths?
Mhm.
You know, that's a centering experience. What happens if I close my eyes for just a moment and visualize a a quiet sort of beach or a quiet mountain stream or whatever? So we kind of know I could do some quick visualization and end up in the center of the change grid. I know that certain scents can move me to the center of the change grid. Obviously, it's going to be very individual, but I kind of remember that if you wanted to move to a very peaceful, balanced place, I think lavender was one of the essential oils.
Mhm.
They said would do that, where other essential oils are more excitatory. So like cinnamon, I think citrus tends to be more excitatory.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, point is, there's a lot of generic stuff that we've all learned, or we might have even taught, or it's just kind of just common knowledge that you can do certain things that will balance, sit down in a quiet place, So you guys throw out some others. What do you consider to be in the generic range of centering or PowerPoint maneuvers?
For me, it's anything that moves the body, because then
All right.
you're literally moving through space. That's why I appreciate productive tension, because you're essentially balancing 3 different behaviors. The physicality of a situation, if you're in a heightened situation, just by moving differently, can impact the mental and emotional, and it often does for me. So I free my mind when I'm moving.
Right. Well, and remember, there are whole philosophies, I guess is the best word to use, or some sort of spiritual practices that very much involve movement. How many of you have ever seen a whirling dervish do their thing? Right now, apparently that is a very transcendental sort of an experience for people who have mastered that particular technique. That's really great.
Tai Chi too. It's slow, but yeah.
Slow, but it's movement that centers the person. Obviously, if it's, we can include things like yoga and things like that. These are all almost meditations in motion. But to Brian's point, it could be going up for a bike ride. It could be going for a long run. It could be for going on a hike. So it doesn't necessarily have to be some sort of a low energy movement. It could be a very high energy movement. I'm sure the mechanism is going to be different, because obviously if it's a high energy movement, it's got to be stimulating a very different set of neurotransmitters than the low energy movements. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was sharing with a client yesterday who seems to have some gifts with the piano, and because she was playing mine here, and I play the piano for 10 minutes and I'm transformed.
There you are.
And it has to be a baby gram, though. It's a baby gram. But when I had to spin it, I didn't play it. But there is something of the expression and I pound those keys. I pound
Well,
them.
it may very well be then that it's a vibratory kind of a thing that,
Yeah.
yeah, that it's in, because I know, okay, I play harp. All you guys know I play the harp.
Right.
The experience of the harp for the harpist is very different than for people listening to it, because the harp rests on your collarbone. And so every single time you pluck a string, your whole body is receiving that vibration.
Mhm.
And so different songs have a different effect on anyone who's, and I'd imagine something to be very similar for people who play violin. You know, anytime your body is actually in contact with that vibration, something's got to be going on. Yeah.
That's a good point, T, because when I had the spinet, I have a smaller house and I thought, well, I'll get the spinet now. I don't have a dining room. I have a piano parlor, but it didn't do it. I didn't play it.
Mhm.
And then I picked up this one, and it's a bit, then but it's the vibration. I never thought the spinet just doesn't have it. It doesn't.
Yep, yep, yep. There are people who, harpists that are involved in music therapy, and they will take the harp, because of the way the harp is designed, built, and how the music is actually played. It's not a chromatic instrument like a piano or most other instruments we play. It's a modal instrument. And that means that I can put sharps and flats anywhere I want, whenever I want. And that means I can change the harp by moving just 3 pedals, actually 2 pedals. I can move it into the pentatonic scale. And the great thing about the pentatonic scale is that no matter what you touch, it will always go together. And it'll sound a little bit Asian in its influence and that, but most wind chimes are tuned to the pentatonic scale. And if you sit down at the piano and you only play the black keys, so Edie, you know this. If you sit down and you only play the black keys, it all goes together. It all sounds beautiful, and you have no idea. But it does have kind of like an Oriental sort of, vibe to it. So
That's interesting, T, because I was just telling this 14-year-old girl that I'm counseling, that she was on the black keys and I admired it. Why am I averse to the black keys? I avoid them. Why is that?
I really don't know, because the thing is that if you play only the white keys and you just let your hands just go wherever you feel like going, and I'm talking about someone with 0 training can sit down at a piano, and if they only play the black keys, it will all sound beautiful. But the moment they try to play all the white keys only, it's going to sound terrible and muddy. So
Wow,
yeah,
that's
because
interesting.
the black keys are the pentatonic scale. So yeah, it all goes together. All goes together.
Interesting.
Yeah, but the point is, going back to music therapy, you can have someone sit at a harp, let it lean up against them, and then by putting it into this key, no matter what they pluck, no matter what they strum, no matter if they're gentle or aggressive on it, it'll all sound perfectly beautiful. So yeah, anyway, there you go. So yeah, interesting to bring that up, because for some people, music is a PowerPoint maneuver. Whether
Yep.
they're listening to music or whether they're playing the music, doesn't much matter. Some people are centered by sitting at an instrument and playing, and some are centered just by listening to whatever music they really enjoy.
Yeah, I can listen to the piano all day, literally. Like it's playing in the background. Like it's not high, but it's just enough to where it's I can hear it or
Mhm.
I can sense it, and that becomes important. And the reason I like that kind of thing where there's music or moving the body is because for me, being a a long time martial arts enthusiast, is
Mhm.
it's a practice of embodiment. And I
Yeah.
think, like, when you think about the mental health crises brewing in the workplace, there's a lot of disembodiment, right? People are just sitting at desk and just forcing themselves to get through the day, and that becomes the conditioning. And so that's why I like this conversation about the PowerPoints, so they can just remember, like, get a sense of there's a you being applied here.
Mhm. Mhm. Yep, exactly right. Yep. So, we're talking about kind of getting into the senses, and this is one of the things we talk about for PowerPoint maneuvers. Is there a PowerPoint maneuver for each of you in each of the 5 physical senses? So is there a smell that'll do it? Is there a taste that will do it? Is there an action that will do it? What is, is there something that you could look at that would do it? Do the stars center you? Does the movement of leaves in a breezy forest, is that what does it? What is it that's really doing it as far as the 5 physical senses are concerned? Now, so we like to say that in the range of possibilities for PowerPoint maneuvers, you want to be looking for a set that are about internal processes. So that's like the meditation we were talking about, the visualizations. This is all stuff that's just happening inside of your head. So it's 100% portable. You can do it anytime you want, whenever the need arises. And most people around you would not even know that you're doing it. So it's a very private, very portable set of PowerPoint maneuvers. The moment you start looking at the ones that are more about your physical senses, now we're triggering something that tends to be more external. So if motion is something that does it for you, well, you got to get in motion. That involves your body doing something that requires you to leave a particular space and enter a different space, if you will. If it's about, playing music or listening to music, this is something that involves something outside of you. So if it's essential oils and it's based on odors and things like that, that's outside of you. If there's certain, I'm trying to think what food moves me to the center of the change grid. I know, no, because unfortunately chocolate has lots of impact on neurochemistry and things like that. I'm trying to think. I seem to remember that it's the umami tastes are what move you to the center. So those aren't salty, those aren't sweet. Those are things like, when you go for a Japanese meal, they often serve you miso soup.
Yes.
Miso, I think, is one of the umami sorts of flavors. Mushrooms are umami. So I'd have to look up what else falls into that category, but I sometimes wonder if they're saying like, hey, eat this food and you'll be in the center of the change grid, or is it the memories or the feelings you have connected to certain foods that will move you to the center of the change grid? So
Yeah, that sounds right. Because I think we can condition ourselves. Because think about it, if you open a brain up, there is no storage unit called memory.
oh, right, yep.
So, the brain literally recreates these experiences in, like less than a second.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like if you said apple, we're all going to have different perspectives of what an apple is. For me, when I hear the word apple, I'm not thinking about Granny Smith. I'm immediately thinking about, an Indian apple was my first experience in an apple. And I mean, you eat an Indian apple, it's like the size of a grapefruit. You bite into that thing, it's like juice come all over you. And I remember that as a kid.
Yep. Yeah, because everyone has their own, anchors to it.
And I think of computers.
And Linda, and meanwhile, you all know she's a champion apple pie baker. You would think that her first thought of apple is a lifetime of ribbons running all these pie contests. Apparently, no, she wants devices. So there you go. All right, so my point is there are a lot of internal, there's also a lot of external PowerPoint maneuvers available in the range of possibilities, but they're unique to the individual. And so I wanted to give you guys a little bit of homework for you to think about for the next week. Remember, again, Thursday, we'll be on an airplane, so we won't be doing this call on Thursday. But as of next week, Tuesday, I'd be very curious to know what your PowerPoint maneuvers are. And so spend some time really thinking about what you do that's internal. So again, it's very important that you can do the internal stuff because you never know where you're going to be. Like, who are these? There was an article in today's paper where these poor people were on a flight and they were trying to land at JFK, but they had multiple aborted attempts to land because the weather was so terrible, the wind was awful or whatever. People were getting tossed all over the place and they kept, climbing up again. I mean, people were really terrified. So it finally landed in New Jersey and everybody wanted to get off the plane. But they were denied that because it was an international flight. They'd gone to one of the islands and they didn't have enough people in customs or whatever to accommodate them. And of course, where's your car? You're on the other side of that metropolitan area. So these people were like flatly refusing. I am not going to go back up in the air again, and that's right where I'm thinking like, that's when you need a PowerPoint maneuver where you can just sit quietly in your own little seat and you can find that little place in your spirit where you can be calm and restored and all those good sorts of things. So you need something that you can do in these unfortunate circumstances or where you can't get physical. Now, those may be just as powerful as the ones that you can do that are involving something more external. Again, that's a personal kind of an experience. So you got to tell us. And so I'm going to end the call a little early today because I need to go take care of a couple of things before we vanish for the wedding. But I wanted to make sure that I was able to explain to you what these PowerPoint maneuvers are and the range of possibilities so that I could give it to you as a self-awareness exercise. Now, if you want to go up to the gifted students program, you would also start noticing the PowerPoint maneuvers in others around you. So for the people that you might live with or friends, family members, people you interact with on a somewhat frequent basis, do you know what their PowerPoint maneuvers are? And maybe you can observe them because that ends up becoming a very powerful tool for you to use when you encounter friend, family member, whatever, client for that matter, coworker who's out of sorts. If you know their PowerPoint maneuvers, you can then help them get back to a centered place rather quickly. Again, you're going to notice when they're traveling close to or around the red line before they're going to notice it. So, so kind of good that you can be in a position. Don't mind me, I'm trying to center something. I'm trying to center being centered. So that's going to be your homework. And now, trying to think if there's any other thing I wanted to tell you about PowerPoint maneuvers. Oh, it's also important to know what the opposite of a PowerPoint maneuver is for you, because one person's PowerPoint maneuver could be something that does the exact opposite for you. And so, for example, I could give you one of my own. I do not find listening to music that has lyrics to be something that will center me. It needs to be purely instrumental, and it could still be upbeat. It might be a little bit lower level, but the moment there are lyrics in it, it's going to completely derail the relaxation elements of that particular situation. Yeah, so just think about what also derails you. And then when we talk again next week, Tuesday, you can share with me what it is that has worked and isn't working for you. Okay, any final thoughts before we're done for today?
This is excellent.
All right, give it some thought. Again, they're unique. No one can tell you what your PowerPoint maneuvers are unless they're really good at observing patterns in your behavior. You've got to discover them for yourselves and make a list of them so you can tap into them either routinely as part of your spiritual practice or your personal growth kind of work. But, there's plenty of times when life is happening, you just need to escape for a few minutes. So, yep, that's what
I got to check on this black key thing.
Absolutely. I'm telling you, you sit down at the piano and you play. You got to do this, Edie. Close your eyes Forget anything you know about music theory and playing anything at all. Just allow your fingers to do anything they feel like doing on the black keys only. And
Wow.
you'll find it's a very meditative kind of a thing to do. And it definitely sounds Middle Eastern to Oriental. So there you
Interesting. You know, I was just going to say, I know Kathy isn't on the call and I can check with Linda, but I'm doing an online course on toxic cultures. I already talked to Brian about being interviewed for it. David, are you on the call?
No, he dropped out at 10:30. Yep.
Did he? I forgot where his email is. I've talked to him before. So I'm interviewing people that are experts, and I've got a list of the topics. So maybe I can just, Linda, contact you and with people that might fit those slots.
Sounds great.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care. We'll talk to you in a week. Bye.
Thank you.
Enjoy the wedding.
Hey.
Bye-bye.